A gasoline motorcycle on EV Rider? What the heck is up with that? Yep, it's true. I've actually bought a gasoline motorcycle. But no, the Zero is not going away, and it doesn't mean that I'm retreating and going back to all gasoline. Although obviously I've retreated just a bit. So anyway, I believe in telling all sides of every story. And so while I continue to be a huge believer in EVs, in my opinion, for my riding style, it turned out that EV motorcycles just aren't quite there yet for all of my riding scenarios. So basically my Zero, I love it to death. It's been a fantastic city and regional motorcycle. But where I've run into issues is when I'm traveling. And it's not the motorcycle's fault, it's the infrastructure. In the case of EV motorcycles, again, my opinion, my use case, I just don't feel the infrastructure is quite there yet. There have been too many motorcycle group rides that I've sat out because there are no charging stations in the locations that I'm riding to. Now, my bike has what's known as level 2 J1772 charging for you non-EV motorcycling aficionados. My motorcycling friends that have Energicas and Livewires with CCS, DC fast charging, will say, well, wait a minute, it's no big deal. They charge up nice and fast. But here's the thing. While CCS and a bigger battery on a new EV motorcycle would be an improvement, it still would require traveling compromises for my particular use case. And what I mean by that, I'll give you an example. This weekend I'm going to a city called Alachua. It's a small town, basically, even though it's an incorporated city outside of Gainesville, Florida. There are no DC or J1772 chargers in Alachua. Now, could I detour from my motorcycle group and charge up somewhere? Yeah, but that kind of defeats the whole purpose of the ride. Now, what I have done historically, I lead my motorcycle group so I can plan. So let's say we're going to Gainesville, which is, approximately 85 miles from Jacksonville. No big deal. I would go ahead and plan a stop near someplace fun with a J-plug, and I would recharge. We're having lunch, and then we're ready to ride back. Same thing if I run down to Daytona. Same thing if I run up to Fernandina Beach. But there are many occasions where I can't go to a destination because of a lack of a charging infrastructure. In a car, it doesn't really matter because cars are coming basically with 200, 300, heck, there's even one, the Lucid, that has more than 500 miles of range. But motorcycles, because of their smaller batteries, are not to that level yet. My Zero, give or take, I can get about 100 miles. But no compromise EV touring is almost here. For example, the Energica Xperia has a 22.5 kilowatt-hour battery with an estimated highway range of about 130 miles. Given it also has CCS fast charging and lower-end level 2 charging, for many riders, it will hit the sweet spot needed to make the switch to an EV. So the bottom line is, for me, there were no motorcycles out there at the moment that met 100% of my EV riding needs. So I decided to get myself an old school 2009 Kawasaki Vulcan Classic LT. I'll be using it for 150-mile and longer rides where there aren't convenient charging options available. That doesn't mean you can't do long-distance touring on an EV motorcycle. I've got a friend who has ridden his Zeros from coast to coast, and I've ridden my SRF more than 350 miles in a single day. Energica and Livewire owners have also been doing cross-country touring. However, when you're traveling with a group of riders, refueling becomes more challenging on an EV motorcycle. If you're considering an EV motorcycle, these bikes are wonderful. And when I say these bikes, I mean pretty much all the mainstream bigger electric motorcycles. Whether you go Zero, whether you go Livewire, whether you go Energica, you're going to be happy. Going up and down mountains, they're a blast. Handling, they're wonderful. You've heard all the stories of the never-ending torque. But where they can be an issue is touring. If you're a long-distance tourer, if you go pure EV, you are going to make compromises. That's just the way it is. Until our infrastructure gets stronger, until these get even bigger batteries and charge a bit faster, they are a compromise in long distance travel scenarios. Now, I'll say and stress, depending on where you live, if you live in a state with a robust charging infrastructure like California, if you live in some parts of Europe with really robust charging, it's not nearly the concern that it is in states and regions like mine. Anyway, you get the idea. Now that I've got two motorcycles, I'll be comparing their strengths and weaknesses. Even though these two motorcycles couldn't be more different, I think that's exactly why I'm going to do the comparison. I'm going to do the ultimate old school versus new school comparison of motorcycles since I have it. By the way, this is a 2009, but for those of you that follow Vulcans, Kawasaki's been making the same basic bike forever. So outside of some color changes, this is basically still a bike that Kawasaki sells even in 2022. So stay tuned for that episode coming up. Let me know what you think of what I just did in the comments. And if you got any predictions on how I'm going to compare these two bikes, let me know as well. I think it'll be fun to do. Old school versus new school. Hey, by the way, if you're enjoying EV Rider, whether it's one of my electric motorcycle stories or electric automotive stories or even my electric submarine and boat stories, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It'll help me grow and eventually maybe even get a little advertising. What you may not know is right now I don't get a cut of any of the ads that go on this YouTube channel. If you would, if you haven't already, please subscribe to EV Rider and recommend it to your friends so I can bring you more adventures in EV, motorcycling, automobiles, e-bikes, and just about anything with a motor and a battery. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you again next week.